all the stories of the Bible, the fall and rise of Judah. 190. Daniel in the days of Belshazzar. Now after the time of Nebuchadnezzar the Great, his son Evil-Merodach reigned briefly. Only one thing is recorded about him in the Bible, the last story of the books of both Kings and Jeremiah tell us that he released King Jehoiachin, that earlier king, from 37 years of prison. He released him graciously and spoke kindly to him and gave him a seat of honor among the kings in Babylon. Every day he ate at the king's table, and from then on he was given an allowance for easy living. Now after this king, Evil-Merodach, was the reign of Belshazzar, the son of Nebuchadnezzar. And now we return to Daniel's life, at the middle of his life. In the first year of Belshazzar's reign, Daniel saw a dream and visions as he was laying on his bed. He wrote down the dream in its totality. I saw in my vision by night, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great ocean, and four great beasts came up out of the sea, and each one was different. The first beast was like a lion, but it had eagle's wings. Its wings, however, had been plucked off, and it stood up on 2 feet like a man, and it had the mind of a man. Now, the second beast came up out of the waters. This one looked like a giant bear. It had 3 ribs from some animal stuck in its teeth, and it was told, "Rise up and devour much flesh on the earth." I looked again, and there I saw a third beast. It looked like a leopard with 4 wings on its back. They looked like birds' wings. But this one, it had 4 heads, and it covered a lot of territory. Then night fell, and behold, a 4th beast, terrifying, dreadful, and exceedingly strong. It had iron teeth that could crush anything. It crushed with its teeth, and then it stamped everything on the ground into fine powder. It wasn't like the other ones. It had 10 horns, and I couldn't take my eyes off the horns, for when I gazed on them, I saw amidst them another horn, a little horn. But the little one uprooted the first 3, and I saw that the little big horn had eyes like a man, and was espousing great utterances. And then thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days came and took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair on his head was pure wool, and his throne was like a fire, with wheels of flame spinning, and a river of fire burst forth from the throne. And thousands were serving him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, and the court adjourned in judgment, and the books were opened. Now the beast was killed, its body was destroyed, and the rest of the beast, they lost their power, they lost their lands, though they themselves were kept alive for at least a little while. Then I peered into the clouds of heaven, and I saw someone who looked like a son of man. He came, and he presented himself to the Ancient of Days, and he was presented with a kingdom, in order that representatives from all peoples and all nations and all languages, they would serve him. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion. Never should it pass away, and his kingdom is one that should never, ever be destroyed. But as for me, Daniel, my spirit within me was troubled, deeply troubled, and my mind was alarmed by this vision. And I approached one of those who were standing there, and I asked him if he knew what this was all about. And that one, he graciously took the time to explain it to me.
You saw those 4 creatures. Those are kings.
They will emerge from the nations and rule over earthly kingdoms. But the saints, they shall receive a different kind of kingdom, which shall endure forevermore. I told him I wanted to know more about the 4th beast, for it was different, utterly terrifying. It had iron teeth and bronze claws. It crushed with its jaws and its feet, and the horns, and those eyes, and the wonderful utterances coming from its mouth. I had seen that its prime goal was to make war on the saints, and it prevailed entirely, until the Ancient of Days stepped in on their behalf. He said to me,
You wish to know about the 4 beasts, and the 4th one, do you not? That shall be an entirely new kind of kingdom. It will cover the whole earth. It will trample down the structures, breaking them into pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings. Another will follow, the little bighorn. It shall put down 3 of the kings. It will speak proclamations against the Most High. It shall wear out the saints. It will change the times. It will restructure the law. They shall be given into its hand for a time, times, and half a time. Oh, but its power shall be taken. In the end, it shall be burned up, destroyed. The kingdom shall be transferred into the hands of the saints. In fact, all of the kingdoms under heaven, and all shall serve the Most High. Well, that was it. That was all I saw. But as you can imagine, these visions consumed me. For 2 whole years, I diligently went about my business, serving the new king, Belshazzar. But all this time, these things were ever on my mind, though I spoke about them not. Now after 2 full years, in the 3rd year of Belshazzar's reign, precisely, I once again saw a vision. It was an experience like the first one, except this time I was clearly standing in front of the citadel of Susa in the province of Elam. I knew the place well, right there by the Ulai Canal, and I was alone there. And at the water's edge was standing a ram. I stared at it, and something was strange about its horns. As I went to look a little bit closer, I saw that both horns were unusually high, but one was higher than the other. Now the ram took off, and it began charging to the west. It ran faster and faster. Then it ran to the north, and then to the south. It had transformed into a fearsome creature indeed, and no one could rescue from its power. It was utterly free. It did only whatever it pleased, unrestrained. And I looked to the west, and behold, a second character had entered the scene. It was a male goat, charging from the west. It hovered like a spirit, without even touching the ground. It had a large horn, the goat did, between its eyes. It was very strange looking indeed. It charged at the first ram, with wrath in its eyes, and it struck him hard, breaking off its 2 horns. The original ram was powerless, and it fell, trampled under the feet of the victorious new goat. The goat grew exceedingly great, but alas, the strange-looking horn on its face was broken, shattered in fact, and there were 4 conspicuous-looking horns scattered about across the 4 winds of heaven. A little horn again emerged and began to own first the south, then the east, and even off to the glorious land. It grew up even to the host of heaven. It even threw down some of the stars and the armies of heaven. For a while, the prince of the host of heaven lost control of the holy sanctuary, and I heard voices of the holy ones conversing, and their words were discernible to me. "How long is this vision concerning the offerings?" it said. "The sin of desolation and the loss of the sanctuary to be trampled underfoot." The answer? 2,300 evenings and mornings. After that, the sanctuary will be restored, and wrongs made right. Now this vision was as strange as the first, so I looked around for someone, again, who might explain it to me. And there, nearby, was someone that seemed in appearance to be a man. I heard a man's voice coming from the banks of that canal, and it shouted out, "Hey, Gabriel, help this man understand the vision." So the figure began to approach me, but when he came near, I was overcome by his presence. I fell down onto my face. But he just said, "Understand, O Son of Man, that the vision is for the time of the end." And I immediately fainted. I fell into a deep sleep, there with my face planted in the ground. But he touched me, and I was jolted back to full awareness. He told me to stand up, and he said this, "Behold, I will make known to you what will occur at the latter end of indignation, for all this refers to the appointed time, the time of the end. First, the ram, the one you saw with 2 horns. These are the kings of Media and Persia. The goat is the king of Greece, and the great horn between its eyes is the first great king. 4 others shall follow, and 4 kingdoms, but none shall ever recover the greatness of the first king. In the latter part of their kingdoms, a king with a bold face, who can understand riddles, he shall rise up. He will have great power, though not on its own. He will succeed, though leaving fearful destruction in his wake. He'll tear down mighty men and righteous saints alike. The destruction he shall create will come without warning. He'll even challenge the Prince of Princes, but not by human hands. And as for the number of which you heard, of the evenings and mornings, it is true. But seal up these things, for they will not take place for many days." And I found myself there, back on my bed, and I was sick, awful sick, for many days. But after a while, I arose, and I went about the king's business. But for sure I was appalled by this vision too, and it made no sense to me. Now Daniel served Belshazzar for the whole duration of his reign. And one day King Belshazzar made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and he drank wine in front of them. Belshazzar, when he tasted the wine, it tasted so good And he ordered that the vessels of gold and silver that Nebuchadnezzar his father had stolen from the temple in Jerusalem be brought out of their storehouses, and that all the king's lords and his wives and his concubines might together drink from these holy vessels that had been taken from the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem. And they did so. They drank abundantly wine from the holy vessels of the Lord, and they praised the gods of gold and silver and bronze, iron, even wood and stone. But as they were doing so, they looked up, and behold, a glowing hand, a human hand, had appeared, and it was writing on the plaster of the wall in the king's palace, opposite of the lampstand. The king saw the hand, and the color left his face, and his thoughts became alarming. His limbs went limp. His knees began knocking. The king called to bring in enchanters, Chaldeans, and astrologers, and he declared to the wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and shows me the interpretation shall be clothed with purple, and shall have a chain of gold around his neck. I shall make him the third ruler in the kingdom." All the king's wise men came, but they could not read the writing or make known to the king the interpretation thereof. King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed. His color had completely gone, and all the lords in there were perplexed and did not know what to do. But the queen, because of the words of the king and the Lord, came all the way into the banqueting hall where the women were and the queen. She said to the king, "O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts alarm you. There is a man in your kingdom in whom the spirit of the holy gods resides. In the days of your father, he was filled with enlightenment and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, he made him chief of magicians and enchanters, even the Chaldeans and astrologers, because he has an excellent spirit of knowledge and understanding. He can interpret dreams and explain riddles and solve problems of every kind. Now the name of this man is Belshazzar, but his old name is Daniel. Let Daniel be called, and he will show you the interpretation on the walls." Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king said to Daniel, "You are that man Daniel, one of the exiles from the land of Judah. The king my father brought you. Now I have heard it said of you that the spirit of the gods resides in you, and from you come light and understanding, excellent wisdom. Now the wise men and enchanters who I have already brought cannot read this writing. Look upon the wall. Do you see it? There is writing. It was written there by some kind of god. Now I have heard that you can give interpretations and solve problems. If you can read this writing, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and you shall be the third ruler in my kingdom." But Daniel answered and said to the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself. Keep them, and give your rewards to some other man. But I will read that writing. I will make known to the king. For the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father his whole kingdom, all of his glory and majesty. And because of the greatness, he became proud. He killed whoever he liked. He let live whoever he liked. He would raise up or humble people at his will. But when his heart was lifted high and his spirit was hard, the Lord dealt harshly, profoundly with him. He was driven to madness. From the children of man he lived among animals until he understood the greatness of the Most High God. And when that happened, his kingdom was restored. You are his son, Belshazzar, but you have not humbled your heart. You know this whole affair of what happened to your father.
But you have been proud. You have taken the vessels from his holy house, and have treated them with contempt, drinking unholy wine, and extolling the names of your gods, the gods of gold and silver and stone. But the God in whose hand is your very breath, who knows all your ways, you have not honored. And so he has sent from his presence his very hand, which has inscribed writing on this wall. I will tell you what it means. The words are like this: Mene, mene, tekel parson. This is what it means. Mene, it means that God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Pares, or parson, the kingdom is divided in half. Half of it shall be given to the Medes, and the other half shall be given to the Persians. Well, Belshazzar gave the command, and Daniel was clothed in purple. A chain of gold was placed around his neck, and a proclamation was made that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. But that very night, Belshazzar the Chaldean was killed. He was murdered. And Darius the Mede received the kingdom. And Darius at that time was about 62 years old.